When it comes to sales, oftentimes we tend to be the biggest obstacle or biggest objection between us and the actual sale. And what I mean by that is it's not usually the things the prospect's saying, it's usually the mentality that we come to the game with. In today's episode, my guest, Austin McCulloh, is going to talk to us about how we can get past that, how we can get past those challenges, those roadblocks that we set for ourselves, and to truly thrive and to succeed in sales. You're going to get some practical insights, some practical strategies, some tips you can walk away with and use right today, right now. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast here on TSC TV on YouTube. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And this topic is one that I really love because oftentimes when I've not succeeded in sales is because I told myself that I couldn't succeed. I stopped myself from truly thriving and from expanding and from doing the best that I possibly could. So on today's episode, when Austin comes in and starts laying out these things for you, you're going to see how easy it is for us to be able to get past these challenges, these obstacles, and these roadblocks. Austin he works a lot with sales professionals, specifically those working in financial arena. He comes with some experience in that world, and you're going to hear about some of the challenges that he faced early on, how he was able to overcome that, and how he's thriving and succeeding right now. You're going to love this stuff. Austin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today, man. I appreciate you.
Of course, Donald. I'm very excited for today's talk.
Of course, man. So before we dive into that, I bragged about you a little bit there in the teaser, but tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so I work specifically with financial representatives. A lot of them have not had success making cold calls, have not had success reaching out to their friends and family members. Some do, but a lot of people, I know I didn't because I didn't come from a wealthy family, didn't have a strong, warm market of referrals to tap into. So I show people how to prospect virtually, whether that's using LinkedIn, using Facebook a little bit. There's a lot of opportunity online, and I don't think a lot of people recognize this, financial representatives in particular. So I show them ways to bring in consistent leads and build out a pipeline of qualified leads.
That's really good because I think maybe it's just historically in that space where a lot of financial reps, they will go to, it's worked for years, the friends and family thing, and obviously everybody could get a referrals is fantastic. When you have done it though, and everyone else that you know have done it, you're going to cross-pollinate and you're going to get people who are going to say, just get tired of it, like that idea. So being able to find unique ways to bring new prospect, a new blood, I guess I should say, to the table is great. So I'm excited for about that. So if anyone's in a financial space, you've got to make sure you connect with Austin here, and hopefully he can give you some guidance, help you out. So this is why I chose you to come on the show here, Austin, because you've obviously done some sales. You've obviously worked with other individuals. You understand the challenges here. But one of the areas that we're trying to focus on right now, we all know it, especially when you're trying to land your first sales gig. Many sellers will assume that it's about external factors that causes them to not produce. So today I wanted to discuss with you this topic: what's between your ears is your biggest obstacle, not what's in front of you. Let's talk about that for a second here. And before we started recording, you started alluding to it a little bit further. Tell me a little bit more.
So what I always like to say to people is, I know everybody talks about mindset. Donald, you probably hear this term all the time, right? Everybody's talking about have the right mindset, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody talks about it, but they don't explain what that means. So actually, I want to go over a quick little illustration I saw the other day. I'm going to read it over. Have you ever heard of Randy Glassbergen?
I can't confidently say yes.
Okay, so this is going to sound random right away, but he creates some artwork, and the one that I saw recently, and I quote, "I spent hours writing down my goals, reciting my affirmations, and visualizing my success, ... while my competitors were out making sales calls." The whole point about it is a lot of people, they're in their head, and they want to get in the right frame of mind. They want to feel positive. They want to think that they're going to be completely calm and completely competent before starting, and none of us are perfect, so we're never going to be there in the first place. That's something that I used to run into a lot with the perfectionist mentality that we all have, especially with social media, we have Instagram and Facebook, and we all want to look good in front of one another. We think that we need to be 100% ready before we start reaching out, but we're never going to be. And of course, that's a long conversation that we could get on here in a bit. But I just know that's holding a lot of people back, especially the people that I work with in particular.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot in there. I mean, we could spend about 2 hours talking about just that part so far, right? The first obstacle, like just identifying that it is an obstacle, because some people might feel that it is not. Like I am doing this stuff, I am preparing, I'm getting and I'm a big believer in getting the right frame of mind and so forth and all of that stuff. I think is appropriate, is a proper way of going about doing that. However, some people make it the crutch, so to speak, or it becomes like you're preparing so much. Like, I'll give you an example. I think Jeb talked about this, Jeb Blunt, where they spend so much of their time, like, say, doing an hour worth of research before they make a call and getting, psyched up and whatnot. And then you go make the call, and then you get the prospect voicemail. How much excitement and energy do you have now to go make that next call, considering the fact that you did all this work for an hour or 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, and it led into a voicemail? You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And that's a big fan of why, and we'll rein this back in, but that's why I'm a big fan of prospecting online and using lead generation as well, is because some people, they get way too psyched up, and then their spirits are let down because they're using, it's all a mentality piece. And so they have to be in the right frame of mind in order to reach out, rather than using other tools to kind of take some of that pressure off. But I think it's important, and I know this is a very bad way to put it, but we will literally never be perfect. Ever. So it's literally impossible to shoot for, and recognize the fact that we all make mistakes. And actually, I think to help with the mentality piece, I think that's why it's important to have whether a counsel around you or an advisor group around you, or people that you can bounce ideas off of, especially people who are doing a little bit better than you or a lot better than you, because then you can see a real person who does make mistakes. Because you're going to know this, Donald. I mean, nobody out there who's doing extremely well is perfect, right? They all make mistakes. They're all flawed. And so when we're able to see people who are doing well and yet they still make mistakes, that gives us more permission to fail along the way.
Yeah. I think it's an important thought there. Like, you're having the permission to fail. And I can tell you, for a long time, Austin, I held back from doing videos. I held back from putting content out because I was skeptical if people are going to, I guess it fall back into the imposter syndrome, but it was an obstacle in my own head that stopped me, that prevented me. And I always go back to my podcast. The podcast now is going on our 8th year. So sometimes people here are doing a show, and they're like, "Man, you've been doing this show for 8 years." I'm like, "Yeah." And like, over all this content, like, we've been doing it for a minute. But I think the thing that happened at the very get-go, I didn't know what I didn't know. So then therefore it didn't prevent me from getting started. If I had known now what I'd known then, I probably would have waited to get a better mic. I probably would have waited to get a better computer. I probably would have waited to get more team members before I can afford that. And that would probably have never gotten started. And it was just because I just said, screw it. Like, let's just start producing something. And my friend Richie Norton has this book, and I did an episode on it the other day. But it's this concept of start something stupid. And sometimes we have these stupid ideas that we say are stupid ideas, but in actuality they're brilliant ideas, but we say they're stupid, and we downgrade our own ability to execute and to make things happen. And I think it goes back great to sales reps.
And that's a great point. Actually, I want to bring up a book. It's the book that I say is the best sales book that I've ever read, and it was not intended to be a sales book. Don, have you ever read The 4 Agreements?
The 4 Agreements? No, bro. You got me getting something.
And I believe it's by, I might mispronounce his name, but Don Miguel Ruiz. And of course, one of those 4 agreements is don't make assumptions. So I was listening to some of your podcasts, of course, to prepare for this episode, and they're all great, as all of us know. But you were talking about making assumptions, especially when it comes to asking dumb questions. Remember that episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous because we act like we have everything all figured out. And so we assume that this question is dumb. We assume that the prospect is thinking this. We assume that we don't know as much as the prospect does. But what do we actually know about the prospect? What do we actually know about the situation? Right?
Yeah. So. It's, and I've made some pretty good money by not assuming. Like, just because you just ask people, and I know some people say like the idea, this concept of assume the sale, right? And I know what they're getting, and I understand the idea. I've just learned that if I assure the sale in our training program, we adjust it. Like, don't assume that I'm just going to go into the close. If I have done all the things that are proper, then I assure the sale. I'll say, Austin, here's the next step that we'll need to do. Here's what we'll need to do, blah, blah, blah. It's almost like we make an agreement to go forward, and that feels more like a relationship rather than like me slipping you. I think some salespeople, it's like those date rape medicine pills. That's what I say. I mean, seriously, think about it. All of a sudden, they give you this, hit you with this thing, and next thing you know, you're signing an agreement. Like, what the heck just happened? Why am I in this room with you? And I think that's kind of that's the first time I ever made that analogy. But I think it makes total sense, right? But we can help assure and nurture that conversation and lead it down a path, and then you're not assuming anymore. And because I've done that assumption, and then you get to the end, and then they're like, no, well, we really need to go back to the board about this. And I feel like an idiot going to my team and team lead and say, yeah, I'm not going to hit the numbers because I assumed.
First off, I agree with you 100% on that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, let's put it this way. You have a sales process as well, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another problem why a lot of sales reps struggle, is because they don't have a clear process to follow. So they're trying to go off their own mindset, and they're trying to feel it out the entire time, where even if you have a document, like for example, I had notes to prepare for this podcast. I'm not trying to go off the top of my head. I mean, we all know what to say, but that doesn't mean that on the spot, everything's going to click right away. And so if you want to lower that pressure for yourself, having a system or a process to go off of has been very helpful. Do you agree?
Oh man, dude, 100%. I have a system I've learned look at this. Like, I've looked at the most successful careers, look at the most successful people in history, and what I've come to realize is that all of them had some kind of process or some kind of a system. I'm a big fan of space exploration and discovery, and way before like Elon Musk and SpaceX. So I'm a big fan of Elon as well. But one of the things that I'm always fascinated about with space exploration is just like this idea of, when you're going on those missions, when you're launching a rocket, or even just the aviation in general. I love planes. When you're taking a flight, you have a pre-flight check, and when you're in the air and you're flying, you have a flight plan. No matter how many times you've flown from Miami to New York or from West Palm Beach to New York, because we're like the sixth borough, South Florida of New York City. So no matter how many times a pilot's done that from United or Delta, they're still going to have a flight plan, and it's just that critical. And I look at sellers who come into the game, especially if they're new. And the issue, we wrote about this in the first chapter of our book, it's like the issue that I see is that they see like someone like you, Austin, who is just like a natural and is like killing it. And they're like, man, Austin just gets up there and wing it. No, you don't realize that Austin's been looking over his stuff and prepping and doing this stuff for years. And he understands where he wants to go with the conversation. And he's role played that before in his training times and so forth. And he knows what to say. He's just not going to, wing it. And then he's not going to spend like 2 hours before a call to do research to prep. So,
right. And something that people don't even see. And this is a document that you can leverage in a virtually driven world. I mean, if you're meeting with somebody in person, you're probably not going to have a piece of paper, a cheat sheet to go off of. But if you're meeting online, I use Google Docs a lot. So I might have a tab open where I'm going through my process because I might update it with something new because it just flows better. I want to have a document, whatever, a link to click. And so I'll have it open there, and I'm focused on the prospect, still making eye contact, but I'll have a cheat sheet myself, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Whatever works, right?
Oh, so good. Austin, let's go back further. What are some other things that sellers tell themselves that hold them back from really, succeeding? Because that obstacle is what they tell in their head. What else are some other things you've seen?
One thing that stands out more than anything else is age. I wouldn't say particularly those towards the end of their careers, but I work with a lot of newer financial reps who are 0 to 2 years in the business. So they might be 19, they might be 20, they might be 21 years old, and they think that they're not able to work with somebody older than them. So what I always tell them right off the bat is that, so I'm 24 years old, my average client age is about 34, 35. And so I can tell them from firsthand experience that people genuinely don't care about your age. They care about how competent you are, and a lot of that comes from confidence, and that leads into doing what you say you're going to do. Do you know who Ed Milet is, Donald?
I do not.
Okay, so Ed Milet, I love listening to him.
You
He's
got me some good stuff going here today.
That's mindset. He's a great resource to check out as well. But that's actually why I picked up that last piece, is where confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do. So one little
Hmm.
tip, one strategy that people could implement, and I'll actually pull this open, but I do a daily success list. For those who are only listening, they of course can't see what I'm holding up, but I write down every single thing that I need to do each day. And recently what I've started doing is I keep track of it quantitatively. So if I have 20 things on the list, I do, let's say I completed 18 out of 20, then you can see the completion percentage, and then you can actually see if you're doing what you know you need to do, right? So
Bro,
you have a clear number to see if you're actually getting the work done.
I love it because that's one of the we have a sales planner, and that's one of the things that we do like to grade ourselves. Because what I was doing before, I was putting like this laundry list of stuff, man. And I was like, I'm gonna, it felt like going to a buffet
Yeah.
and then actually eating half of what I put on my plate. And that's kind of the same equivalence that I saw with my planning. It was like, let's get all this stuff done. And then I felt like a moron at the end of the day when I didn't accomplish it. And I was like, I feel like I was pushing myself down. But I started realizing if I'm gonna put, I can't remember it's not the exact number, but let's say like a 15. If I put 15 activities on my day and I get 14 or 15 done, I feel really good. But if I put 20 activities and I get 15 done, I'm just kind of like, oh, it causes that failure fatigue, which then continues to go on to the next. But I love this idea of having a percentage. You give yourself a grade at the end of the day. I got a 92 today. Great. As long as it wasn't a B, I'm good.
What I like so much about it is it's quantitative rather than
Hmm.
qualitative. Of course, we need both, and I can't remember which
Yeah.
guest of yours it was, but somebody was talking about it in one of the recent episodes, maybe Jose.
Yeah.
And qualitative is good, but you can't clearly measure it. And I'm somebody, I like black and white as much as possible because it's clear. Like
Yeah.
I love this definitive answers. And so if we can say yes or no, we make progress. If we say maybe, we're in the same spot. So it's just something that's easy to track. And going back to the age part really quick, it's, I don't know, there are a lot of people that think that they're not competent enough. They're assuming that they're not competent
Mm,
enough because of their age. But really, if you do as much as you can on a daily basis, where you know that you're maximizing each day, you're not going to lack the confidence. Now, some days it's going to be higher than others, but if you
yeah.
can control what you can control on a day to day basis, week to week basis, and you consistently do it, you're going to be a more confident person. It's literally that simple.
Have you ever had a situation like that where you felt like your age held you back? Or where again, you felt may not have been true, but where you're like, oh crap, I'm young. They ain't gonna listen to me.
Not as much anymore because,
Yeah.
especially as you build your brand more on LinkedIn, whether you're doing it on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, as you build your brand more, you're providing a lot more valuable content that gets conversations going more where people are asking to learn from you rather than you just
Mm,
trying to get them on a phone call. And of course, that's another conversation. But when you come from that point of authority, then people want to learn from you so you don't worry about the age much. But when I first started out, yeah, I mean, that was something that I was very insecure about, especially when so I got into financial services, which of course that's why I work with financial reps. But I got into
yeah.
financial services when I was 19 years old. Who wants a 19-year-old handling their finances? That's one of the most valuable things to a person in their entire life. So you can't blame them for being skeptical. And then on
Yeah.
the flip side, you think that these 40, 50, 60-year-olds have all their finances figured out, but financial education isn't taught much throughout at least the
Mm,
United
mm.
States. So it's amazing to see how many people are in their 40s, 50s, 60s plus who don't know anything about their finances at
Yeah.
all.
And they're the ones. I mean, imagine debt that they have and the challenge that they have, and they're the ones supposed to be giving advice. So, dude, so good.
Yeah.
I got a young seller listening to this episode. He's thinking like, I love what Austin shared so far. I'm still kind of skeptical about me being able to be successful in sales. They're still between, it's what they're telling themselves that's holding them back still. What advice would you give to him as he's graduating, getting ready to jump into the sales world?
This might sound like a strange answer, but if you already have the job, figure out, is that really the job that you want to have?
Mm,
Because as Donald, you and I are both going to know this, belief is such a critical piece in selling. So you're
yeah.
going to be much more effective when you have a high level of belief because people are going to be able to buy into that transparency. I think the energy is much more authentic. So if you don't believe what you're selling, you can be extremely gifted, but it's going to be tough. I've even seen that firsthand with my own business. When I was selling, I used to only do coaching, and that isn't
Yeah.
what everybody wanted. So I had to take that honest, humble look and realize this isn't what people want, so I need to revamp my services. And I didn't
Yeah.
have that belief level because I wasn't closing as frequently as I wanted to. So once I've revamped it, closing has been a lot more consistent, but I had to take that honest hard look. So take that honest hard look, and then honestly, you can't control how people view you. You can only control what you can control. So of course, be a completely honest person, have high integrity, but brand yourself as well as you possibly can. Like, don't put yourself at a disadvantage. And I know I'm spewing a lot of information, but
This is
even
good.
last year at one period of time, because of COVID, I was growing out a beard, I was growing my hair long, and a lot of people would mention it. And I realized I was wasting a lot of sales time, a lot of sales calls, just talking about my hair. And second off, I'm working with financial advisors, financial reps, and that's not the look that they have. And so I
Mm,
realized that I was putting myself at a disadvantage because people stereotype right off the bat. So
yeah.
whether it's not having the right clothing, the right look, taking care of yourself, just don't put yourself at a disadvantage right away. I guess that's the advice. And I know there are bits and pieces there, but that's what I would tell a young seller.
Well, the young sellers are getting excited now.
Good.
Austin, if they want to get in touch with you, folks listening to this episode, how did they go about doing that?
So, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn at Austin McCulloh, and you spell my last name McCulloh. Otherwise, go to my website, www.mccullohadvising.com, and I'm more than happy to talk with anybody who reaches out.
Austin, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thanks for your wisdom and for helping these new sellers land their first gig and to start thriving in sales. We appreciate you, man.
Of course, and like what you always say, I appreciate you, Donald. So thank you.
Thanks. Listen, that was Austin McCulloh. If you want to go ahead and connect with Austin, you can go ahead and find all of his details. Just go down below. You can find it in the description. If you're watching this on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, or TSC TV, or you're watching listening on Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show, what I ask you to do is go ahead and leave us a rating and review. If you haven't done so already, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well. It goes a long way when people can come. They can see that you liked it. They can say, well, if Jane liked it, if Joe liked it, if Richard liked it, if Philip liked it, if Reggie liked it, shoot, I should like it too. And that's what we would love for you to do. Go ahead and subscribe. Let me know how you like the podcast. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. As always, I share stuff like this. I bring on folks like Austin. I tell you about these sponsors, these people who are giving us amazing solutions to offer you because I want you to succeed. I want you to thrive. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to go out each and every single day and do big things. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.